Do you hate your boss? Do you hate your job? Do you need a job to hate? Well, for the low price of free, yes, I said for the low price of free, we can teach you how to be your own boss. Do you want to be an IT computer consultant? We can teach you how to do it. For how much? For free. Yes, stay tuned to learn more. Too many people think that becoming a consultant is a very difficult and complicated and hard, horrible process. Becoming a consultant is actually a very, very easy thing to do. I became a consultant completely by accident way back when, 6 or 7 years ago. I was out of work after the dot-com boom during the bust. I was laid off. I didn't have any job prospects and couldn't figure out how to get a job save my life. Literally put out 50 or 100 resumes and nobody cared. So I was living in some crappy little house, drinking Pabst beer for entertainment, because that's all I could afford. And a friend of mine said, hey, why don't you put up these little pull tab signs and, for 25, 50 bucks an hour, fix their computer problems. It's not a great job, but, maybe you can at least make enough money to go out to a decent bar, get a decent pint. Well, I put up those little pull tab signs, and I tell you what, after 1 month, I was paying all of my bills, and after 3 months, I was living in a decent apartment, eating Whole Foods, and drinking very, very nice beer. It wasn't complicated, it wasn't hard, and literally, I just walked into it. This little class is going to teach you how to be an IT computer consultant. Like I say, it's not hard, it's not complicated. You just have to be willing to do certain things. So if you want certain rewards, you have to do certain things. And this little class is going to teach you what you need. Now, the first question that comes up whenever I talk to anybody about becoming a computer consultant is, what equipment, what tools do they need? And it's really normally not a question. They just start going, I'm going to be a computer consultant, and they start rambling on about all this fancy equipment they need and thousands of dollars they need to spend. Let me tell you, the only piece of equipment that you need when you're starting out your little IT computer consulting company is this. A screwdriver. Actually, one of these really cool, fancy, flip it around screwdrivers that's all you need. I've done probably 90% of my work. I walked into the client's office with a pad of paper and this little guy. Even a few months ago, as a high senior level technician with my own company that's been around for years, you normally only need a screwdriver. Now, what sinks a lot of people is that they put a lot of money into equipment and tools that they don't need. So they spend $1,000 on this, a couple $100 on that, a couple more $100 on the other thing, and they wind up with a lot of tools that don't get used. Rule number 1, the biggest rule when you're starting your business, is never buy anything that doesn't bring you back money. So, don't buy a tool unless you actually need the tool to fix a problem that a client is paying you for. Most of you that are watching this video live in an area with things like Walmarts and Staples and Home Depots and the whole 9 yards. So when you're starting out, instead of buying a whole bunch of crap that you may or may not need, as you're going along, if you need a tool, look at the client in the face and say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have this tool. Let me run over to Walmart or Staples or whatever, and I'll be back in a second. They're going to be fine with it. You might be able to charge them a little bit of money when you do, and you don't end up buying stuff that you don't need. For 4 years of while I was a consultant, this was my tool bag. This contained every single tool that I took to a client's site. People would laugh at me because I'd walk in with my little green bag. But you know what? I was making 85 bucks an hour sitting at client sites anywhere between 4 to 10 hours at a time. So hey, my little green bag worked. So the first thing is, when you're going for tools, get your little screwdriver. Of course, you need a computer, but don't go out and buy the biggest, best, fanciest. Probably buy a little laptop. Dell has a lot of laptops now for $500 that you can buy. You need something that should have a wireless card in it, so if you're troubleshooting wireless networks, you can wander around with it to troubleshoot the network. Obviously network card, but nothing fancy on top of that. Just a base computer with wireless card is all you need. Of course, you need internet connection at your house, so DSL or Comcast. But that's it. That really is it. You get your screwdriver, you get your laptop computer with a wireless card, and you get DSL connection at your house. Those are the only things you need to start your business. Don't buy any more until you need to. So the next question that people ask is, okay, when you're starting your business, where do you work from? They automatically assume, okay, let's go out and let's find me a little office space. They may not think, oh, I need a store or I need a big building, but they say, I need an office space to work out of. Believe me when I say, no, you don't. You can do this business. You can be an IT consultant absolutely fine from the comfort of your own home, from your basement, from your den, or from your living room. There's two reasons for this, and there's three reasons for this, and there's three very important reasons for this. One, as an IT consultant, as you most likely will be going to your client site. So if their server dies, you're not going to be fixing their server from your house. You're going to go to their site and fix their server. Or if they have virus issues, you're going to go there. Or if you're going to install something, you're going to go there. If you install a telephone system, this, that, the other thing, you're going to go to the client site, or you're going to meet at the client site. When my business was at its height, in the building that I'm in now is 2,500 square feet, we had this wonderful conference area. And very, very rarely would my clients come to the conference area because they were busy doing their work, so they would simply prefer that I went to their location. So therefore, to them, it didn't matter if I had a large building, and it doesn't matter for you. I suggest people stay with your own, stay in your own house or apartment until you absolutely need to move out. Because the second thing that comes along is many of the tasks that we perform as IT consultants are very time intensive, but not very human interactive intensive. Say you're installing service packs. Well, most of installing service packs or updates are clicking next, waiting half an hour, clicking next again, waiting half an hour, or installing an operating system, clicking next, waiting half an hour, clicking next, waiting half an hour. When I do these videos that get uploaded, once I'm done editing the video, which is very, very labor intensive, well, then I hit create video. And my computer chugs along for an hour or an hour and a half producing the little flash file so that I can upload it to a web server. And then after that hour and a half, then I turn on my FTP piece of software, and it takes another hour to an hour and a half to upload to the server. So that's 2 to 3 hours where I wasn't doing anything at all, but the process was going on, so I had to babysit. So which would you prefer? Would you prefer some scuzzy little office that you go into to work, but then while these processes are happening, you're just, taking a nap at your desk or something? That kind of sucks. Whereas if you're working at home, you can set this process to run, you can cook yourself a nice dinner, you can see your wife, you can watch a movie. I've done a lot of work while watching movies, where, watching the movie, next, click. Okay, watching the movie, 20 minutes later, click, next. And so I watch a movie and I get work done. You get paid for watching a movie. That's great. The next thing, and the final thing, is remember, when you're starting out, you need to keep the cost of your business as low as possible. You don't need to be spending money that you don't need to be spending. So when you get the office, when you get an office, then you need a telephone. So that's gonna be another 40 bucks. Well, then you need another internet connection. So that's 40 or 50 bucks. Then you probably should have an alarm system because you're gonna have equipment in there. So all of a sudden you're already up to $150. And that's if you're renting an office where things like water and HVAC, heating and cooling, are included. If you have to pay for your electricity and gas bill on top of the rent and all these other things, you suddenly start spending $800 to $1,000 for something that's not really directly bringing you any money. So at home, you already have internet, so you're already paying for that. You're probably already paying for a phone line. You're already paying for heating and cooling. You're already paying for the rent. So there's no extra money there. That the $800 you will be spending on an office, you get to keep. And in business, it's all about the profit. What I tell some people going into being consultants, if they say, oh, but I need more space, well then rent a bigger house if you can, or rent a bigger apartment. To go from a 1-bedroom apartment to a 2-bedroom apartment is only going to cost you an extra $100, maybe $200 a month. versus $800 in an office. So when you're thinking, where should you work? Work out of your house for as long as possible. It's the cheapest way of doing it. It really is good for you because you can do other things while processes are happening. And as somebody that's been doing this consultant work for 6+ years, believe me, the businesses don't care. They are going to want you to go to them anyways, even for conferences and meetings and all of that. And as long as you come across as a stand-up person, they don't care if you're working out of your house. That's the way it is. The next thing we have to talk about is advertising. You have to advertise to show people that you exist and to tell them, who to call or where to call for your IT services. The first thing you're going to want to do as soon as you decide to become a consultant is create a web page and get an email address with your domain name. So get a domain name, a web page, and an email address before you do anything else. Because as soon as you start handing out business cards, people are going to start using the information that's on those business cards, and so changing that information a month or two into the process is just a pain in the butt. It doesn't cost very much. For $50-$60 you can have the domain name, the email address, and the website up and running, and it's there. It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be the most beautiful website in existence, but you should have a website up just to explain who you are and why you are, and yada yada yada. Then go out and get business cards. I would suggest you use vistaprint.com. For $20 or $30, they'll send you 1,000 very, very nice business cards, and depending on what shipping option, you can have them in a couple of days or a couple of weeks. But after you do your website, get your business cards. From this point on, the place that I see that many people run into trouble is they start trying to spend too much money on advertising. They go to the local newspapers and they put in ads, and they start trying to do web advertising, and they do this and that. They do things that cost $1,000 for a pop, and then they end up not receiving any work in. I had somebody that I met who was much more qualified than I was when I was first starting my consultant business, but he went out and he spent $4,000 on advertising right away, and then he got nothing, and then he was broke, and so he had to go back and work for somebody. I spent, $25 on advertising, and I was making enough money to pay my bills. It really is the difference. At this point, don't spend money on advertising. Like I say, get business cards, do little things, but don't spend $100 or $200 or $500 on advertising, because you don't really understand how it works yet, and it will go down the toilet. So once you do the business cards, then what you need to do is go out and knock on doors. So if you're an IT consultant, go to the local town where you're around and start knocking on doors and saying, hey, I'm an IT consultant, here's my business card, do you need any help? I'm an IT consultant, do you need any help? Da 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 da. And just do this. I found for every 3 hours I walked around knocking on doors or meeting people, I got one client. Some of those clients were 1-hour affairs, and some of those clients ended up being $50,000, $60,000 clients over the years. So I don't know what clients you're going to get, but I know you're not going to get any clients unless you go out and, like I say, you knock on doors, you meet people, you hand out your card. If you're not doing computer work, you need to be out there advertising that way. One of the good things that I used, I talked about before, were something called pull tab signs. So little half-sheet pieces of paper with little iFix computers on it, and then underneath, then my name, the email address, and the phone number. I put those up all around the colleges and colleges, small businesses in the area, and that is what got me a lot of business to begin with. A lot of people looked. I charged $50 an hour at the time. That was very inexpensive compared to Geek Squad and all that. So they went, ooh, $50 an hour. They pulled the tab and they called me. That type of advertising is very effective. The expensive stuff can put you out of business before you start. It's the inexpensive advertising that'll work. So, like I say, you need to start knocking on doors, business doors, handing out your card, saying what you do, start putting up little pull tab signs, do those type of things for advertising, and those will succeed for you at the end of the day. Web marketing works exceedingly well, but if you're just starting out, don't use it. I'm going to have a class on web marketing, so right now, don't use web marketing at all. It is effective, but again, it can bankrupt you before you start. Along the same vein as advertising is promotion. You need to learn how to talk about yourself and your business as much as possible. So whenever I meet anybody, when I was doing computer consulting, I would always make sure that they knew I was a computer consultant. I would always kind of bring it up a little bit in conversation. Almost everybody needs computer consultants, and so when you bring it up, they go, "Oh, you're a computer consultant. Do you do websites?" I did websites, so I say, "Yes, I do websites." "Oh, great, give me your card." And in a simple conversation, you've gained a client. I used to go to the bar way too many nights of the week and get snookered. Well, when I would go there were a lot of business people that went to the same bar. So, I go there with my buddy, we'd be talking, start talking to the person that was beside you. They say, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" I go, "Oh, I own my own computer business." They go, "Oh, really? Hey, give me your card." And so I would go out, I would have an amazing, fun, wonderful night, drinking, meeting people, and get clients all at the same time. I made money going to the bar. So it's hard to do at first. I know a lot of people are very quiet and very introverted, but if you want to be successful, you need to learn to talk about your business and then learn how to sell while you're talking about it. So, if you go to a party, somebody says, "What do you do?" You go, "Oh, I'm a computer consultant." "Oh, really? What do you work on?" "XYZ. And that's how you can get business very easily and cheap. I mean, for a couple of beers or just going to a party, etc., you can gain clients. Now, the next topic is charging your clients for work done. The first thing you need to figure out, and you need to put this in stone, is how much you charge per hour. So when I started, I charged $50 per hour. As it went on, it went up to $85 per hour. So you decide how much you're charging per hour. And then when people ask you, you just tell them what you charge. If you haven't figured out what you're willing to charge, things get really weird really quick, because they'll ask you how much you charge, then you say something weird, they go, "What?" And then it all goes downhill and you lose a sale. Just when you're starting out, pick a price, $25 an hour, $50 an hour, $100 an hour. It doesn't matter what you pick. Pick one price and stick with it until you decide the price is too low or too high, and then change it. So if you meet with a client and you're trying to close a sale and they say, "How much do you charge?" and you say, "I charge $125 an hour," and they go, "Oh, well, never mind." Well, then the next time you go to a client, pick maybe $100 an hour, and then go in and say, "I charge $100 an hour," and if they're willing to pay you $100 an hour, then that's what you're probably worth. If you go too low, let's say you're charging $50 an hour, and you get so much work you can't keep up with the work, well, the next client that comes along, tell them, let's say $65 an hour, and then start charging everybody $65 an hour. If you still have too much work, charge $85 an hour. If you still have too much work, start charging $100 per hour. But pick one price, one hourly rate, and then stick with it until you decide to change it. So don't be thinking about your labor rate during the sales call, or when you walk into the business establishment. Don't start thinking, "Well, should I charge these people $50 an hour or $100 an hour?" You should have already decided that before you start talking to the client. Now, once you start working, especially if you're new at this, you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna make screw ups, and you don't usually want the client to pay for your own screw ups. What you need to do is, if you decide to deduct money off of the bill, if you want to lower the bill, always lower the hours worked and not the price paid per hour. So let's say you charge $100 per hour. You were on site for 5 hours and you go, "Hey, I screwed up. I could have gotten this done in 2.5 hours. Well, then charge for 2.5 hours times 100. You'll get $250. So they look at it and they go, "Well, he was here for 5 hours, but he's only charging us for 2.5. Okay, that seems right." What some people do, and this leads you down a rabbit hole of hell, is they reduce the amount they charge per hour. So they'll charge them for the full 5 hours, but they'll say, "I'll only charge you $50 per hour for those 5 hours." It comes to the same in a total. It comes to $250, But what that puts in the client's mind is that you can negotiate the labor rate, and you never want them to think that you can negotiate the labor rate. No, 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 no. So if you ever have to deduct on the invoice that you're giving, like I say, you worked 5 hours, that should be a $500 bill, but you only want to charge them $250. Always reduce the hours worked, not the amount per hour. On that, once you've been doing your work for a while, when you first start out, do hourly billing rate. It's a lot easier. From there, you want to start going to lump bills. So instead of installing a server and billing the client for, let's say, 5 hours to install the server, you want to start getting to where you simply say it'll cost $1,000 to install this server, or it'll cost $3,000 to do tune-ups to all 10 of your computers. It's a lot easier to sell clients on fixed price. So if you say it's going to be $1,000 to install a server, you can end up making a lot more money than you would if you told them that you were only going to bill for what's called time and materials. So if you say I'm going to bill for as many hours as it takes to set up the computer, well, it may only take you 6 hours, but in the client's mind, it may take you 20. So they're a little scared. So although it may only cost them $600, let's say, for you to set up the server, they think it may cost them $2,000 to set up the server. It makes it a lot easier for the sale, and you end up making a lot more money if you simply, like I say, come up with a fixed price. So you say, I'm going to install this server for $1,000. It's probably only going to take you 5 or 6 hours, but it might take you 15. You take the risk. They know what the price is. It makes everything a lot easier in life. Make sure when you start doing these larger projects, when you start out, do this all the time, and then when you're doing the larger projects, make sure you get a deposit for the total cost of the hardware that you're going to buy. So if you're buying a server for the client, make sure at the very minimum you get the money for that server. Even small businesses, even what people you think are respectable, bail out of their bills. And if they bail out of the bill and the only thing that they're bailing out on is labor charges, that doesn't hurt so much. Okay, you may have spent 10 or 20 hours at their site, but you're not really losing money. Well, if you've purchased servers and computers and monitors and this and that and the other thing, and then they bail out of the bill, not only are you out that labor time, but you're out that hardware expense. So now you didn't just lose time, but you also lost money, and you could lose a lot of money. So no matter what, always make sure to get a deposit when you're starting a project that covers at least, at the bare minimum, what you're going to spend on the hardware. Also, legally this comes into play because let's say everything goes to hell between you and the client, and this happens every once in a while. If they've paid you for the hardware, then legally, in almost all instances, since all they've paid you for is the hardware, you can take all the hardware, you can drop it on their doorstep, and you can say, okay, we can't work together, I'm done. They paid for the hardware, they got the hardware, that part of the transaction is done, you don't have to go any further. So bare minimum, get the deposit for the amount of hardware that you're gonna buy for the client. The last thing is, everybody wants to take credit cards now. Try to not do this for as long as possible. Credit cards cost a tremendous amount of money, and they're not really worth it for small IT consultants. You're going to be paying anywhere between $30 to $50 per month simply for the privilege of accepting credit cards for the system. Once you start accepting the credit cards, the credit card company takes anywhere between 2 to 3.5% of the sale. So I mean, for a $1,000 sale, it's $35. For a $5,000 sale, it's $150 or $65. So that can add up to a lot of money really quick. And the final thing is, again, if you deal with these horrible, nasty, evil clients, when somebody makes a purchase with a credit card, they have up to 3 months to dispute that charge. So you may sell something for $1,000 or do something for $500, and then 3 months later they decide to dispute the charge. When they dispute the charge, that money gets ripped out of your account. And it's a painful process, but there's not a whole hell of a lot you can normally do about it. And so this is 3 months down the line. Once it's 3 months down the line, then you may not know where the client is at, and even if you can come to an amicable solution, it becomes difficult. If they give you a check, well, as soon as you get the check, you take it to the bank, you deposit the check. If it bounces, you're going to get it back in a week or so. You get it back in a week, and then it's much easier to deal with that client that stiffed you than, like I say, 3 months down the road when you have to figure out who it was that stiffed you in the first place, and it's just a big pain in the butt. So don't take credit cards for as long as possible. Checks and cash are great, wonderful things. Credit cards cost you a lot of money at the end of the day, and like I say, up to 3 months the clients can dispute the charges. I've had this happen, and it's a real pain in the butt. The next thing to talk about are the things that make you a real business. This is the IRS FEIN number, the Federal Employee Identification Number, your sales tax number from your state or your reseller certificate, your doing business as name, and whether or not you're going to become a corporation. The FEIN number, the first thing, is your Federal Employment ID number. This is a number you need from the IRS whenever you start to have employees. So you don't need it until you start to have employees. But you should get it as soon as you can when you start the business, because when you start dealing with vendors, if you give them an FEIN, that tells them you're a real business. So although you may be a completely legitimate real business that's working out of your house, until you have that FEIN, vendors kind of look at you a little weird, because a lot of normal consumers will try to act like businesses to get better deals, because businesses, small businesses a lot of times, get better deals from vendors than normal customers do, because the vendors figure if you're a small business or you're a business, you're going to give them more sales over the long run than a normal customer. You know, a normal customer may buy one computer, where a small business might buy 10 or 20. So they want to give you a better discount because they hope you're going to give them more business down the road. So having that FEIN, even if you don't have employees, is a very useful thing. You don't need it, but it's very useful. The next thing is your sales tax number and your reseller certificate. What that is whatever state you're in, if they charge sales tax, you need to get a sales tax number from the comptroller of the state. So whatever the state is, you'll have to Google it. You go online or you do their application process, you say you're a business, and what will happen is they should send you this little packet with a sales tax number on it and coupons so that you can pay your sales tax. So here in Maryland, I have to pay sales tax every month. So I go through QuickBooks, it tells me how much sales tax I've collected total over the month, and then I write a check off to the state, and that's how it goes. So you need that, one, to stay on the good side and the good graces of the state, so they don't come after you. But you also need that for a lot of companies that only deal with businesses. They require a reseller certificate. So it's not as important now with the boom of internet retailers. Like I used to buy all of my products from Newegg.com. Their prices were so good for everybody that I didn't need to be a business to deal with them. Some of my other vendors, ones that sold specialized computer cases or surveillance systems, or the ones that sold me telephone systems, they would only deal with resellers. So in order to buy anything at all from them, I had to send them my reseller certificate. So if I didn't have a reseller certificate, they wouldn't have dealt with me. Just that easy. So depending on where you are on your business, this is more or less important, but in order to collect sales tax and then send it to the state, you need your sales tax ID number, and in order to deal with a lot of vendors, you need that reseller certificate. Now, the doing business as name here in Maryland, I can just go to the state government building and get one of these for, I think it's like $25. And what this says is, it says that me, Eli, is doing business as, let's say, Eli the computer guy. Why this is important is because then I can take that doing business as name to the bank, create a business checking account at the bank, And now people can write checks to Eli the computer guy versus Eli Etherton. So if somebody wrote out, let's say Eli the computer guy, and gave me a check, and I went to the bank, to my normal account, I couldn't cash it because I wasn't Eli the computer guy as far as the bank was concerned. I'm Eli Etherton. So having a doing business as name allows you to get a business account with the bank. So that's an important thing, especially if you're planning on growing your company. That allows when employees go out, when I had 7 employees, when they collected payment from the customer, I didn't want them to say, oh yeah, make it out to Eli Etherton. That's weird. That doesn't make the customer very comfortable. If they said, make it out to Eli the computer guy, that simply makes the customer comfortable because they know who they're writing the check to. The final question you can ask is whether or not you should become a corporation, an LLC. What I have found as a computer consultant is it's probably not worth it, at least in the beginning. When you're a bigger business, like I said, when I had 7 employees, then you definitely want to become a corporation because it gives you a lot of insulation from legal problems. So if your employee does something really stupid, they can't come back and sue you. Lawyers will tell you to become an LLC regardless, even though it's more paperwork, even though it's more of a pain in the butt. It's a lot easier to be a normal person and do your taxes than if you have this LLC. And the problem that I see is the LLC, or the corporation, is supposed to give you immunity from being sued if you do something dumb. Well, the problem is we're computer people. So if I do something stupid that breaks somebody's computer or loses some data, see, since I'm my own employee, it seems that they could just sue me for negligence regardless. There's something that goes into it's called breaking the corporate veil. If you want to talk to a lawyer about this, I would say in the beginning, don't worry about being an LLC or an S corporation or any of this. Just work on your own. If you do something stupid enough that you're going to get sued for it, I bet that a good lawyer is going to sue you regardless. I don't think that LLC is going to do much good, but I'm not a lawyer. I would say in the beginning, don't do the LLC. So get the FEIN number because that'll help you out. You don't need it, but it'll help you out. Get the sales tax number because that means you can be a reseller. It allows you to deal with vendors and collect sales tax. Get that doing business as name, whatever your name wants to be. Billy Bo Bob's Tech Emporium. Get that doing business as name. That allows you to go to the bank and get a business checking account. And then as far as the corporation goes, especially in the beginning, I wouldn't worry about it, but I'm not a lawyer. You have to make the decision. But if you become an LLC, there are more hurdles to jump through, and it is more of a pain in the butt. And I don't believe it'll give you any more protection, but that's my opinion. Now, one of the big things while you're an IT consultant is always make sure to under-promise, over-deliver. Never say that you can do something that you end up not being able to do. This may not seem like a big deal if you're not used to dealing with projects and you're not used to dealing with bills, but if a client asks you if a system can do something, and you go, oh, yeah, it can do that, and then you buy all the products for the system, and then you install the system, and you set up the system, and then when the system is up and whirring and buzzing and all that other stuff, and you're ready to collect the bill, when the client goes, okay, well, how do I do this that you said it could do? And you go, oh, well, I guess it can't do that. Then they may very well tell you to take all your crap and go home, and now you've just lost all of the money. So, if you install servers and computers and printers or any of that, maybe $3,000 or $4,000 worth of equipment that you've set up, plus your labor time, if that equipment ends up not doing what you said it would do, you're liable for that. So they can get their money back and they can kick you out and you're done. So whenever a client asks you whether a system or a product or a service that you're offering can do something, always make sure that you're very conservative with what you're saying. If you're not sure if it can do it, say, I think it may, let me research it, I'll get back to you. Or if you're really not sure, just say, I don't think it does. Does this kill the sale? Or can we go forward? A lot of times, as long as you're honest with the client, they'll shrug it off. So during the sales spiel that you're going through. Hey, you need to buy this server. It does all these things. Well, the client will ask you, well, does it do X, Y, and Z? Well, if you tell him right then and there that it doesn't do X, Y, and Z, they're probably going to mull it over in their head, and then they're going to say, well, we'll buy it anyway. And you're fine. If you do say it says does X, Y, or Z, they're going to assume it does X, Y, and Z. And then once the system is set up, then they feel you lied to them, and it gets bad really quick. So always be very conservative with what you say. Always under-promise, over-deliver. You always want your system to do more than they expect. If it does more than they expect, they're happy. If it does less than they expect, it's bad. So under-promise, over-deliver. So along the lines of under-promise and over-deliver is your liability while you're working on your client systems. Remember, if you make any mistakes and you delete any data and you do something really dumb, you are liable for that. In this industry, just like lawyers and doctors, if you decide to go out and get insurance, one of the types of insurance you have to get is errors and omissions. What does that mean? Errors and omissions means it's liability insurance in case you make a mistake. So in case you accidentally delete a backup and then their server crashes and you can't recover it, or you do something dumb that way, or if you omit telling your client something that they should have been told. So literally, you can be sued simply because you didn't tell them what you should have told them. And that can be a bit of a scary thing. So whenever you're dealing with your clients' computers, just be very, very, very careful, because if you do something dumb, I mean, even a little thing, you can be liable for a lot of money. A lot of these databases that are out there that contain, client information or inventory information, I mean, they can be destroyed with a single mouse click. And they're worth a lot of money. I mean, that might be worth $50,000 to $500,000 for some little database that you can destroy in the blink of an eye. So whenever you're working on your client systems, be very, very, very careful. When you're doing projects, you have to decide whether you're going to do something called handshake deals or contracts. I used to do a lot of handshake deals as Eli the computer guy. So we'd be installing systems. I would go over the proposal and the project with the client. I knew the client personally, and we would just shake hands on the price and everything else. It was a friendly business engagement. Why this was good is because nobody was really held that legally liable. It was they didn't want to not pay me because I know them in the real world, and I didn't want to mess up their systems because I knew them in the real world, and that would all be bad. So we would do the proposal. We both would know what was expected of us, and we would do it. I would install the systems, and they would pay all the bills. The nice part with this was that there was no written contract, so if something did go horribly wrong, there was nothing that anybody could pinpoint back to and frankly sue anybody over. We could just do the project very easily. This was nice because I didn't have to have contracts written up. If you have written contracts, those contracts have to be written up, they have to be signed, things have to go back and forth. If you have a handshake deal, you can tell them the proposal, they can say, yeah, go ahead, and you can literally start immediately. You don't have to get the lawyers and all the paperwork involved. The bad thing with handshake deals is I did lose some money on this. Clients decided not to pay at the end of the day, or they decided other bills were more important than mine because they had written contracts on those bills. But it also helped out because I had clients who ended up not being very nice clients, were those evil clients. And when they started being unacceptable, when things started going downhill, we could wash our hands of the entire project very easily because nothing was written. So when they started being nasty and derogatory and calling us names and all that, we could just wash our hands of the situation and walk away, and they'd be screaming at our back, but hey, they didn't have any piece of paper. Written contracts, you can either have a lawyer write those up, or you can write it up yourself, or kind of steal it from somewhere. You can do a lot of copy and paste nowadays. What the written contracts do is it says exactly what you are to provide and how much they're going to spend for that. These can be very good if they are written correctly, and they can be really horrible if they are not written correctly. My written contracts were written by a lawyer, and he put in some amazing, wonderful things into the writing that really secured me and made sure that I would make money off of just about any project. But you have to remember, if things go bad and the lawyers come out, that contract is gonna solidify. That is going to be the business deal. So if you write that contract poorly and you get sued, and it's written basically so that the client is right and you're wrong, then it's gonna go bad. So something to think about: if you do the written contract that really that cements everything, that cements the entire business relationship. If somebody doesn't provide what they're supposed to provide, then you can go to court over it fairly easily, and then the contract is pretty easy to read on who's right and who's wrong and who gets sued. So it's good. So if you write it well, then you almost always make money. You're never in the wrong. But if you write it poorly, then then the client can do horrible, nasty things to you. So keep that in mind. So when you start out, and as you go along in your business as an IT consultant, you're going to have to decide what services and products you offer based on what you're able to offer. So depending on what your skill set is, maybe you'll fix computers, or maybe you'll fix telephone systems, maybe you'll sell computers, sell servers. It really all depends on what you're capable of doing. Obviously, if you don't know anything about building websites, you're not going to build websites for people. But as you gain more experience, of course, you'll learn how to sell more products and provide more services to your clients. One of the things that you have to be careful about is, as you add to your repertoire of what you can provide to the client, what services and products, you have to make sure that you don't start offering so many services and products that you can't keep up with any of them and that you're still making money. So sometimes it's easier to offer very, 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 very few products or services, but do it very well and make sure everybody comes to you, than have lots and lots of products and services but not really make any money because you're spending all your time running after these different products and services. You'll have to decide how many products or services to offer. But be careful of it's called product and service creep, where you start adding, your client asks, you fix this desktop computer, can you fix a laptop computer? And you go, well, maybe I can fix laptop computers. Well, can you fix my iPhone? Well, maybe I can fix an iPhone. Well, can you fix my MP3 player? And see, suddenly you're fixing all of these things, but you don't have enough time to devote to any one thing, and that can be bad. So just make sure as you add to your products and services that you offer, that these products and services add to how much money you make, and you can really provide for them well. Now, as you're building your business, you may find that you need help, and so you need employees or you need contractors. Oh, employees and contractors, well, they're their own kettle of fish. Dealing with employees, hiring employees, all of that is far outside the realm of this class, and I don't know, I think it's outside the realm of my knowledge. Like I say, at one point I had up to 7 employees, and God bless them. I loved them as human beings. As human beings, they were wonderful, wonderful people. As employees, they were utter pains in the asses that I hated. So that's the whole thing, is when you get employees, understand, or if you think about getting employees, understand what makes a good person is not necessarily what makes a good employee. If you get an employee, or if you get a contractor to help you out with a project, the only advice that I can really give you, and just take this to heart, is don't really think of them as people. It sounds bad, I know it sounds bad, but simply think of them as another resource that you are using to make money. So when you hire them, or when you're paying them, they need to be bringing you money. They need to be making you money. And if they're not making you money, just like a server or a computer or a screwdriver or anything else, they need to get replaced because they're obsolete. So if you decide to bring on employees, just remember that they have to make you money. Don't look at them as wonderful people. Don't care about their kids, their wives, any of that stuff. Are they making you money? Great, then they're doing their job. If they're not making you money, then they need to go. That's really about all I can say on employees right now. Maybe we'll have another class later, but just, yeah, employees, whew, they're their own kettle of fish. Well, that's about all for what it takes to be an IT computer consultant. Like I say, I walked into this business and it really was that easy. I put up some pull tab signs and knocked on a few business doors, and like I say, within 1 month I was paying all my bills. Within 3 I had a nice little apartment, was drinking fine beer and eating organic food from Whole Foods. It really is that easy if you just follow some of these steps, and if you don't do the stupid things that everybody does. I mean, like I say, is you can work out of your house. You can work out of the basement of your house, and that is 100% completely okay. But a lot of people feel like they have to have an office, so they end up spending $800 or $1,000 at the end of the month for an office that nobody cares about. Well, that $1,000 can go to your mortgage or to your car payment, or I don't know, flying in St. Pauli girl herself. I mean, there's no reason to spend that kind of money on something that really is not going to make you any money at the end of the day. The same thing with advertising. Your best advertising is things like pull tab signs, is knocking on doors and giving out business cards, is creating little brochures and giving them to everybody you know. I used to go to the local farmers markets and sit there with a whole stack of these flyers, and just everybody who walked by, hey, do you need computer help? Hey, do you need computer help? Hey, do you need computer help? Do you need computer help? Do you need computer help? And I would do that for 3 or 4 or 5 hours, because those are the things that bring you money. Tools, you don't need a lot in way of tools. Like I say, start out with a screwdriver, maybe a can of air. A few things that you probably already have around your house are fine. You don't need the fanciest computer. As long as you have a computer and internet connection, that's fine. You may need more later. You will need more later. But buy it as you need it. If you buy it as you need it, you'll be doing fine. If you just buy random stuff because you will think you'll need it, I guarantee you, you're going to wind up not needing what you bought, and you're going to need something else, and then you're just not going to have the money for it. Remember, with business, being an IT consultant, this is business. Business is all about profit. It is about making money at the end of the day. So you may not like the thought. I mean, a lot of people don't like the thought. They say, well, I want to advertise on billboards, or I want to advertise in the newspaper, or I want a nice office, or I want this, or I want that. Those are fine when you're making a lot of money. When you're making enough money to just throw it away on things you don't necessarily need, hey, fine. Get billboards, get office space, get the whole 9 yards. But as you're starting out, you need that money. Any money that's not going into the business is probably going into paying the bills. So you need to keep hold of that money. If you don't need to spend it, don't spend it. Only spend money on things that are enlarging your bottom line. If if you spend $100 and it'll get you back $500, fine, by all means spend $100. If you're going to spend $100 and it's not going to bring you back anything at all, then don't spend it. Not now. In a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, fine. When you're flush with money, that's great. But in the beginning, don't. Only spend the money you need to spend. The final thought, and the final thing I'll say, is being an IT consultant, being a small business person, takes a certain mindset. You have to be willing to feel like a complete idiot. Probably about at least once a day. When I talk about knocking on doors and talking to business customers that way, I felt like a moron. I hate doing it. I mean, after 6 years, I hate doing it. I'm starting a new business pretty soon, and I'm going to have to go back to knocking on doors and handing out flyers and all of that. And after 6 years, it's still painful. After 6 years of making money doing it, it's still painful. I mean, knowing what the end results will be without a question, it is still painful. It's still embarrassing. It still feels stupid. It's still, no, I just don't want to do it. but that is what is required to make the business succeed. And that's something you're going to have to get your head around, and you're going to have to deal with, is that it's all about making the business succeed. It's about pushing back your embarrassment, pushing back the things that you don't want to do, and doing them, because that's what the business requires. No matter what business you're in, you're going to have to do things you don't necessarily want to do. And that's just a fact. So if you can accept that you're going to do things you're not necessarily going to want to do, then you're going to do them, you're going to get them over with, and then life will be good. Like I say, I hate doing knocking on doors and handing out flyers. But I love clients. Once a person has become my client, I adore that. I adore talking with clients and talking with their employees and seeing how their systems work. That's great. That's fun. Those initial sales calls, are just embarrassing pains in the butt. But I do those initial sales calls so that I can get the client, so that I can have fun, do what I want to do, and make money. So, as you're looking at this, as you're going into business, just keep that in your mind. You're going to have to do things you're not necessarily going to want to do. And if you do them, then you'll succeed. If you're like most people and you go, I don't want to do that, and then you don't do it, well, then your business is going to fail, because those are the things that make a business succeed. So if you don't do them, then you're not going to have a business. So I hope you learned how to start your own little IT consultant company from this class. Like I say, it really is that simple. Just take the advice that I just gave you, do some Google searches, and literally by the end of the week, you can be an IT computer consultant like me. Well, by the end of a couple of years, you'll be like me. But by the end of the week, you can be an IT computer consultant, and it's always a good time to be your own boss.